Welcome back to another quick tip. I have with me another Microsoft PM. I'd like to introduce everyone in our audience to Erin. Welcome, Erin. I appreciate you showing up on the show today. We are going to talk about AI functions. This is just recently announced at the Fabric conference recently. We've got some documentation now on the Learn site for Microsoft, and we're going to see a live demo. Let's get into the story. Let's jump right in. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I know you've had a lot of PMs on, so I'm glad to join the ranks.
Excellent. Well, let me get your screen up here and we can just dive right into demos and get going on this. Here you go. Your screen is up.
All right, so I'm going to start with the good stuff with a demo, and then we can cover more details later. But the high-level overview of this feature is we want to make AI available to do more than just kind of back and forth chats. That's important, right? Copilot is great. Data Agent is amazing, and there are so many use cases that are supported by that. But we're also thinking about how to make developers more productive with easier, simpler code. So we've released a set of these AI functions in Fabric. These are libraries that you can call in a single line of code to transform, enrich, adapt Pandas data frames and Spark data frames. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview, and then we'll take a high level look. So I'm in a Fabric workspace right here. Hopefully you can see it. It is new. I just created it, pretty lightweight, right? I did create a lakehouse, and I plopped in some of my favorite text-based sample data. That's generally what we are working on when we think about AI functions, right? It's text analytics. So whether you want to do sentiment analysis, translation, I don't know, Mike, what do you find yourself doing with text most of the time?
I do a lot of like topic derivation, right? So I have a bit of a blob of text and I want like key information and topics out of it. I do a lot of like YouTube stuff and I do a lot of surveys with things. I'm always looking for like key topics or things that are categorical values that I want to kind of extract from data. I'm using a lot of text analytics from the transcripts from Teams now also as well. So text is difficult to work with. And I think AI is a great place to put a lot of text analytics together.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have an AI extract function that will do just that. So,
awesome.
You may be in luck. So this is a set of data that I like to use for demos that includes airline feedback. So customers who are talking about the seats on the airplanes, the lounge at the airport itself, and their flight. And we want to use these AI functions to analyze this data. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new notebook. I'm going to attach this lakehouse to my AI function data engineering notebook in the same workspace. And you get that familiar view, right? We can now explore and bring that in. The first thing I'm going to do is one brief setup. This is a code library, right? It's documented in this blog, which Mike will share the link to. We have public documentation here. And since we're still in the early phases, there's a tiny bit of setup you have to do just to get the library installed. So I'm going to plop that in. We're going to work with some Pandas data frames. And so I'm going to copy this. Basically, what we're doing is bringing in the OpenAI package dependency and then the libraries for AI functions. And so it's a little gnarly. Soon enough, you will not have to do this. It will just kind of be there pre-installed on the runtime. And for Spark, it is. So I can show you that after how you wouldn't have to do any of this. But
love it.
This is just some throat clearing to make sure that we have access to that set of AI functions. And these functions are going to call through the built-in Fabric LLM endpoint. So if you have right now an F64 SKU or above or a P SKU, you can just use the AI endpoint out of the box. Soon enough, if you have any paid SKU, you'll be able to use these bad boys. And even if you have a lower capacity, you can still use the functions and bring your custom endpoint. So if you have your own Azure OpenAI resources going on, it's kind of like a BYOB thing, except it's bring your own model. We have the models, but you're welcome to do your own. So, okay, we queued this up. That took, less than a minute to install. I'm just going to hide that. And what I'm going to do is drag in now some of this data. So let's actually take that airline CSV, and I'm going to load this into a Pandas data frame, and we'll get a look at that data, including the text reviews. So we'll let this spin out a little bit, and what we're going to see here is how people feel about our airline. So we have the name of the airline people are reviewing. It starts with the A's, goes down alphabetically, it looks like. We have the titles of these reviews. Looks like they're pretty standard. We have the countries where the reviewers are from. So super international audience, makes sense, right? It's air travel. And there's a bunch of other information about ratings. But what we really want to key into is this content, right? So there's a lot of text here, right? It's text heavy. People have all sorts of opinions. They want to tell you about how much they hated their flight or how great it was to get upgraded. And we just want to get a kind of quick view of this. The AI functions let us do that at scale. So the idea here is I could write the code myself and it's a single line, but we also have a UX experience coming in where you go to this AI tools tab in the notebook, click on
Oh, nice.
AI function. Yeah, we'll do it right for you. And we get all 8 of them here. So these are documented. You can peer in a little bit more, but they're basically task specific functions for things like calculating similarity for text, categorizing text into, values you come up with, detecting
Hmm.
and more. There's also a custom prompt which allows you to go a little crazy, and we'll explore that. Just for a simple example, I'm going to use the detect sentiment function. And here we can actually just choose this data frame from our session, choose the column to analyze for content, and then insert this code. It is dynamically generated and it's here. There is a little bit of that import just to make sure you have the libraries, but the
Hmm.
logic itself is really just one line. So it's going to be df. We're creating a new column of this data frame. Sentiment is what we're calling it. We could modify that. We're accessing that content, and it's just .ai.analyze sentiment, and there's no argument. Now, I want to make this quick. So before I run that, I'm actually going to just pop ahead here and make it 100 rows so we don't, do all 40,000 or however long this is. And then I'm going to hit run, and we're going to see how that goes. We can play with the performance here. So we're still working on some of the defaults, and we have a function parameter called max concurrency that decides basically how long it takes to do this. It came back pretty quick with our default, but we could make that even faster with parallelizing it. But
Hmm.
the idea here is we got those
Oh,
results.
nice.
It's only 100 rows, but that was pretty quick. We could go faster if we want. It's just kind of how many of these we're firing off at the same time.
Yep.
So, I've talked a little bit, but the end to end is really simple, right? It's just one line of code. And with that one line of code, we now get AI generated sentiment labels, and we're peering into that distribution using the data display with that display command in the notebook. So that's kind of
Wow.
the simple version.
Well, so one thing I just for reaction as I'm looking at this going, this is incredible. I love being able to see that you have a simple dialogue box that kind of starts out, pick a couple things. It's little nitpicky things of syntax that you need to get done and figured out. Once I do a couple of these, maybe I'll write it myself eventually in code. But I love the fact that you're pre-populating that whole experience for you and just dropping the code in that I need. That's amazingly helpful for, again, you're thinking like that business user that's coming into this space. They're going to want to use this. This is going to be an immensely helpful feature for them. Love this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the value proposition really is that for us, not all of this is completely net new capabilities that you couldn't have, engineered with different Fabric or Azure capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But we want it to be simple, right? We want you to be able to cut right to the chase and have, syntax that is so clean that soon enough you'll be writing it yourself. So
Yeah.
let's say we wanted to do something else. We'll give it a try writing that code and see if we can get one of those other functions. So I'm going to close out my little helper, but it's there if I need it. And let's
Mm-hmm.
do something like translation, right? So I'm actually going to create a new column here, and I'll call that, I don't know, what do you speak? Spanish, French, anything? Any takers? Let's say maybe Spanish reviews.
Let's go with Spanish. That's probably the one everyone in the U.S. kind of learns in this northern area. We have a lot of people who take Spanish in our area up here.
Yeah, so that's a good one. I was not one of those people. I think I took French in grade school, but
Oh, nice.
that's okay. We have them in English, and worst case, we can always translate them back. So
Yeah.
I'm going to access that same content, right? So we're going to
Sure.
go df. Hopefully the IntelliSense kicks in. I made a typo, but there we go. Content. And again, it's the same syntax. So I'm just going to go .ai . And hopefully here, yeah, we get that autocomplete
Nice.
coming in with IntelliSense. So we already did
Yeah.
analyze sentiment, but I'm actually going to go here and do translate. And all I need to feed it is a language. I'm going to say Spanish. We support 10 that we've extensively tested on, but I think any valid language is a kind of your mileage may
Oh,
vary
wow.
thing. We've
Yeah.
tried Klingon, we've tried Pig Latin, so less useful, but not out of the question. And
Amazing.
then I'm going to display this. So we'll see how that goes. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So we did sentiment analysis and translation. There are 5 more like task specific ones that I mentioned where it's really kind of, these are prompt engineered to a specific task like classification and so forth. But there's also a catch-all generate response. So if there's something you want to do that we're not, supporting out of the box, you can do it yourself.
Now, do all of these AI functions, and I would assume some of these are also documented as well. In this example here, you're passing in the Spanish parameter or the option here. I want to translate with Spanish here.
Yep.
All the other functions have documented potentially options and parameters as well, and that's on the documentation page that we put in the chat window just in case you wanted to check out as well.
Absolutely. So I will show you that in a second once I verify that. This looks Spanish to me. I can't actually be sure unless I use another AI function to translate it back to English.
Yes.
But I'm
Awesome.
going to hope that someone in the audience will chime in and say something if the AI function was an imposter. So
I love it.
We do have those functions documented, as Mike said, right? Because even if you're not using the UX, we want you to get started simply. So if we had gone to the docs and went to AI Translate, we have Pandas syntax and PySpark syntax. So I go down to Pandas and we have the syntax here just generally. We also have the parameters listed, in kind of more detailed technical reference. And then all of those examples are also just here by default too. So you can kind of get a sense of some sample code and then modify it based on your own use case. So that's kind of the end to end. And of course, now that we have this data, we can keep going. We could write this back to a lakehouse. We could, ingest that data into Power BI. Whatever you got to do, you can do it.
I love this. This is super simple. It's clean. I love the fact that it's on the ribbon. It's right there, highlighted for you. This is very nice to go back and forth. And then again, look at the documentation here. So you used the one earlier around AI analyze sentiment.
Yep.
There's a couple other options there. You have like an input column. You can have an output column. You could even have an error column. Those are two optionals that you could use. So a string that contains the name of a new column where the errors are a result from processing each row of data. So that way you can kind of have the full richness of like if there's problems, you can actually kick out some of the errors as well, which is also really useful here because again, I don't know. Sometimes you run things through AI, you're not really sure what the results are, and you need to verify that it's accurate and give it a place to put problems where if there are any it finds through the process.
Absolutely. And so the error syntax tends to be with the Spark example. So I'm just creating a new notebook here so you can see it work from scratch. So the previous example was Pandas. If you're more familiar with PySpark, a lot of people are with Fabric, though I prefer Pandas. You can get those samples here right out of the box, and I'll show you how it works even without any setup for PySpark. So let's take another function, for example. Let's say extract entities, because Mike was talking about that earlier.
This is what I was liking, yeah.
Yeah, right. And this is really powerful. Lots of stuff you can do with this. In this case, I don't have any data in my notebook already, and the UX tells that. So it says, well, you can check again if you update the state to bring in some data, but you can also just insert code here for you. So this code is the Python variant, but we could also insert PySpark code, and I'm actually going to do that. So you see it's functionally the same example, but the syntax is a little bit altered.
Yeah.
And here we're going to just let this run, and you'll see kind of how this looks. And so it's a pretty simple example for entity extraction, right? This could be string values where, it's the name of someone, the profession and the employer, and we just want to pull those out. Sometimes these take a little bit of, prompt engineering, but the idea is that if there's standardized, values or entities you expect in that text, you can pull it right out with these functions. And yeah, that's kind of the beauty.
The question I have here around this is like for example, like there's some things, let me give you an example. Like let's say I'm a tool manufacturer, right? And I have a number of tools, like my product SKUs or my product names might also be in text. How flexible are we able to do with like the kind of labels that we have here? Is that where I would maybe start venturing into like some of these, you talked about being able to extend into Azure ML a little bit as well, where I would maybe provide some additional training data around like, hey, these are names of products, or this is a list of products that I wanted to search for. How much flexibility do we get here with this extract function?
So we're still developing it. Right now, there's not a lot of added flexibility here. The way that I typically recommend people proceed is to combine the extract function with the generate response function, where you can give like a custom prompt. Okay. So I'll show you a good example about that next, actually. But we're going to add more customizations in. Like one thing that we want to do for classify, which is, you give labels. So if they're product reviews, you'd say,
here's the products. Here's a list of products or something. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, or that, right? Or you want to categorize by products. So we give the labels, but we're also going to expand that function to probably have examples too. So in addition to just the labels you expect, you can give more descriptions. That's one optimization we're working on for like verified examples, or few shots as we call them, where you can kind of prompt the AI a little bit with what's correct. But on entity example, let's go back to that other data set. If I think I still have that notebook somewhere around here because I want to show you where that comes in a real example. I was playing around with this a little bit with the airline data.
Yeah.
And one thing that is kind of cool to do is try to see if we can pull out the location of the origin and the destination for some of these routes because that could be really important, right? It's not necessarily always
Ah.
specified, but that's one that I like to give a try. So like these content reviews, right? Sometimes they make reference to, oh, my flight from, I don't know, the North Pole to Australia went really well, right? Let's see if we can pull that out. I don't know.
Love it.
Delta's not offering that yet, but we can hope one day.
Soon to be run. That'll be a leg of the journey that you'll be able to get pretty soon. For all those individuals at the North Pole.
Yeah. It's a long flight, but it's supposed to be really comfy. So here I'm going to go. I think my session's still connected. And let's go to extract entities, and we're going to choose that same data frame. And I'm going to choose that same input column. And I'm going to try this. It might not work because it's a little bit customized, but I'm going to say maybe destination city. And I might also say like origin city. And we'll see here that since it's not customized, the mileage may vary a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, we could use the custom the custom text generation to potentially standardize it. So it's non-deterministic, right? With AI, it always, can give you a slightly different thing. But in this case, it actually looks pretty good, right? It's saying it takes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's spitting out, in this case, a new data frame. But we could append that if we wanted to see them side by side. But you get the idea, right? Where there are cities, destination cities and origin cities. So that is something we were able to do with the AI. We could go back and take a look, I think, at some of the columns and see how that did. But, you mentioned custom cases, and I don't know if this bothers you, Mike, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, some of these are cities
abbreviations.
And some are code, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. True. Yes, exactly.
So that's not ideal, right? If you're trying to, let's say you're taking this into a Power BI report, and you're trying to slice and dice, like you might have duplicate values.
Totally.
So you can always fix that, right, by creating a rule-based formula, right? You could map things and find and replace them, but we can also try doing something, and this I'm going off on a limb for. So if we, mess up, hopefully I won't look like
your mileage will vary.
Yeah, your mileage will vary, literally. In this case, let's take that entity data frame, and I'm going to try to be really specific. What I'm going to say is, I'm going to say it might come back as JSON or something. So I need to try to see where I want it to go. Let me say like add a column with the abbreviation of the destination city. I'll fix my typos too as I go. And I'm gonna actually have that underscore there.
Yep. So you're calling off specifically the column. It'll know to find that column.
Yeah, and there's actually more advanced, prompt engineering you can do in the like kind of code first application and the documentation where you can specify that it's a prompt template. This is just free text, which is why it might not work as well, but let's see how it goes. So add a column with the abbreviation of the destination city airport. I'm going to say each value should be a single, 3-letter capitalized string. I'm just going to say nothing else. I don't know how this will work. We'll try it out. This is just an example of needing to customize. It might not be perfect, and like we're a month post release, so hopefully you won't be too angry with me if it's not ideal. But we're gonna give this a go and see kind of how it works. The idea is that in the long run, we want to make these task specific functions like extract more accurate and allow for more customization, so you can kind of get that result immediately. But in the interim, what we're telling people to do is to kind of customize the responses. And so one thing that we're seeing here that's a little weird is it's returning JSON. So I might say don't do that, but it is actually abbreviating it correctly, we might notice. So I'm going to mess up the pronunciation of that city. But we see, for instance, that in this JSON body, the airport abbreviation we're getting is LJU, which seems to correspond earlier here. So we might play around with this, right? You could add some manual post-processing to just pluck that out. You can modify the prompt to say, hey, don't return JSON, just return the 3 letters. You're going to need to play around with it. And I'm really going to need to play around with it to make the product better. But just giving
Yeah.
you a sense that this is a mix of kind of standard things that are powered by AI, like sentiment analysis, extraction, translation, summarization, but also
Yep.
the flexibility to kind of take it to the next level for your data, your specific case to kind of get what you need to get out of it.
Oh, dude, this is slick. I'm loving this already. I mean, the fact, man, the amount of code I'd have to write manually just to get some of this stuff out would be ridiculous. Like, and the fact that it's just giving us large majorities of the answers at once. I mean, there's. I always think of data as just this big pile of data that's sitting around somewhere, and like you have to build a bunch of like cleaning steps or functions or things that have to like really scrape through the data to make it valuable. This is an opportunity to kind of really get through that data a lot quicker, at least a first pass. I mean, it may not be perfect for round one, but at least you're getting a great first pass on some of these AI features and just bolting them in and adding them right onto your existing data frames. This is incredible. I love this.
Yeah, I'm so glad you like it, and we're excited to keep evolving it. There's a lot of room to improve, but it's a relatively new kind of scenario because we tend to think
Mhm.
about AI coming in with Copilot or data agent, right? To be a kind of interface, a almost human-like chat-based experience.
Yeah.
That's really valuable for a lot of customers. But we also have this newer use case of, well, why don't I use AI more the way a data scientist would or a data engineer would, kind of with similar syntax to actually transform the data at scale? And so we're trying to give you the best of both worlds in Fabric.
Awesome. So how, just out of quick curiosity, just because I'm a bit curious here. So I'm using AI functions. This is just running inside the notebook. The functions are running inside Spark at this point. So this is your normal Spark billing, right? So we're not using, like at this point, I'm not using like Copilot CUs at this point. I'm using your window prompt on the right hand side, pre-build some code, land said code in the notebook, and then when I run the notebook, I'm just using standard Spark CU compute, right? I mean, there's nothing super fancy here.
Yep, that's correct. So, I mean, this stuff is all for free, the templatizing of the functions, but the
Yeah.
the actual logic is all we consider it, data transformation. That's part of
Yep.
Spark. And so
Love
it's
it.
going to be converted to CU seconds and appear under that meter.
Even better. Okay, I'm even more excited. So this is going to be available. It's already out now. Is it it's been public preview, correct?
Public preview, the UX should be kicking in a little bit later this month, I think. And then the real party starts, I think, early May when these capabilities are available for all paid SKUs. Right now, you're going to need a F64 or maybe like a lot of people on this audience, a P SKU. But
there you go. Okay, excellent. And
that
was my other call out here. I love the F2 SKU for playing around and exploring things. So the fact that it's coming in May later on for those lower end SKUs, super big win. I'm going to play with it a lot more, especially when I get it down on those lower SKU levels, because I got to spin up, like I have to scale up to an F64, try something, and then spin back down just because it is much of a heavier SKU at this point. So very pleased that you're making that announcement and supporting that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I should call out too is, unlike some of the other AI features, we technically can work on lower SKUs, including trial SKUs. The catch is just that you have to bring your own endpoint, as I was saying. So this isn't actually how I recommend doing it, but for some customers who have specific, LLMs, right? Domain specific LLMs, or they want to use a new model, or they want their Azure OpenAI processing to be done outside the capacity model. We do give you the ability to connect to your own deployment. Again, it's like that sort of bring your own beer thing. We would like that you come to our party and drink what we have and tell us if there's something you want that you don't have, but you can also bring your own. We want developers to have the flexibility to do what they need to do. And we're also going to be upgrading the models. So we'll be using, I think, 4.0 mini as the default starting a little later in May. That'll all be documented. We'll announce it. We'll let you know, but you have total flexibility with the set of features.
So this means, like, I'm looking here at the list of things. I see like default, and then you have some like embedding a deployment name. I mean, this means I could actually bring like Llama from Facebook over here too as well, right?
It's only Azure OpenAI LLM.
Only Azure Open. Okay, so OpenAI from Azure side of things.
Yes, but let us know if I'm Facebook. I'm not sure we want to go there, but
well, you never know. Someone may want to say. Someone may want a Llama showing up here at some point. If we can host it, can we run it here? Maybe we'll run it on Azure infrastructure, but using their model. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I'm a loyal Microsoft soldier, but you let us know what you need, and we'll listen to what you need. Right, that's what we want to do. Make you happy.
So. Also help me out here something else as I'm thinking unpacking like the different models. There's a lot out there. I mean, the AI landscape is moving just incredibly fast for us at this point. I also am aware of GitHub has their own models area. So is there any kind of integration that you're thinking through, or is this only in Azure, Azure's AI experience that we can do this? Do we get the ability to use some of like the models from GitHub? I think there's a GitHub model marketplace potentially.
So that's not something I've looked into, but let me make a note of it and maybe we can talk more about it, Mike, and anyone else who's listening on who is curious about that or has feedback or wants that, let me know.
Yeah,
We're kind of all ears and still
sure.
getting a lot of feedback. But no, right now I don't think that's something we have, but who knows
Well,
what
then
the future will hold.
I'll throw down in the comments below. I'll say, hey,
Yeah.
anyone who's talking about it. So if you are playing with AI pieces, right? So if you're using OpenAI on Azure and you're playing with other places where you may be using AI, please let us know in the description of this video. I will be watching it, and I can funnel the comments back over here to Aaron, and we can get that back to the product team directly and figure out what kind of models make the most sense for our customers, right? This is something to make your notebook experience more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So
awesome.
Anything else, or should I maybe show a few future areas?
Yeah. Let's keep going.
We got some time. Okay, so we talked about these functions in notebooks. We talked about some of the improvements we want to make to the functions and kind of some of the flexibility. But another thing that we want to do is expand the surfaces where people in Fabric can, do this kind of transformation.
Yeah.
So maybe you're not working in a notebook, right? Maybe you're working with a, data warehouse, or you're working in a different kind of notebook, a T-SQL notebook, or you're in a data flow. We want to give you the ability to use these functions too. So we're in the process of actively exploring integrations for these kinds of capabilities with other languages, other programming engines, and other low-code experiences across Fabric. And it's another thing I'm curious to learn if people want to use. So I might bite myself for doing this, but I'm working right now actually on a private preview for AI functions in Data Wrangler, which is another feature I work on. This is a low code interface that generates code for you, right? It allows you to do all the transformations, but also spits out Python at the end. And this is a preview experience here, so it's not going to show up on your end of the product. But we're trying this out with some customers. We want AI enrichments to be available here too.
Oh wow! Okay, one side note: this is the Power Query for Python. Like I just love this experience. Is awesome. I absolutely adore the fact that I can do like step-by-step based operations inside this, and it builds code and notebooks, Python, functions for me in here. This is great. I love this. And the fact that you're bringing it directly here, even better. Love this experience.
And we're going to give Power Query some love too. I wouldn't want to forget about it because it's a slightly, just different audience. We want you to be able to use this if you're using Python and, data flows and Power Query if that's your preference. But the nice thing about this experience is it gives you a kind of Excel-like view of everything. You get summary statistics, right? You can drill in a little bit deeper, focus a little bit more on the data. And then you can combine a lot of standard operations with the AI enrichments that are coming, and you get all of the code. So for instance, one thing that we might do is say, look at these sentiment values. We calculated them in the notebook. Now we're in Data Wrangler. Let's say we want to filter down. So I only want to look at those negative values. This is not an AI operation. This is just a standard operation, but Data Wrangler, gives you the code to do that. So I'm going to say equals negative. Let's filter down on those values. And you see that as I start to edit the UX, it's actually giving me a preview of what the data looks like in real time, and it is giving me the code below. If I like the way that looks, I can apply that, and then we see that our data changes, right? So now we have that. Yeah, it's the kind of, I think, the best of both worlds, where you're doing the UX business and you don't need to write that code, but you always get the code, right? So if you need
exactly
pipeline, look at it, you can do that. So maybe just as a last step, we can do another custom operation. Let's just revisit this, right? We had these reviews. We did some sentiment analysis. For fun, we translated it to Spanish. I'm actually going to get rid of these because I don't think that was mostly just showing off. So let's drop that column and get rid of it. Now we might want to do something with these negative reviews, right? We don't want our customers to feel negative or to feel bad about our airline. So we might send them a promotional response. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to go to AI enrichments and say use a custom prompt. And I'm going to call this new column promotional message. And I'm going to say something like write a custom message to the author of each review, providing a promotional deal and acknowledging their feedback. And then just to kind of make it a little bit trickier, let's say, write the message in the native language of the review authors country, because we know we have that.
What?
So let's see this. I've done actually a demo of this before, so it's not as scary as it thinks, but it is always a little nerve-wracking to do it
I'm
live.
scared for you.
Yeah.
This is
We're-
this is
yeah, no, what do you
cool.
think? Yeah, no, it's a little scary, and so it gives me the preview. We're still working on some of
Yep.
the UX bits,
Sure.
but we do actually now get those values. So I'm gonna look into them. I could also preview them in the notebook. I think I should really get a tooltip here. So we could drill in a little bit more, and I can bring them back in the notebook. But we see, for instance, that that looks French. This looks, is that Polish? I wish I had Justina here. Yeah, that's Polish. I
Okay,
know
yeah.
that enough. So that's Poland, France,
What?
Switzerland, UK, Spain. So we should see some English, some Spanish. So it looks like that worked. And again, it might not be perfect, but the idea is if you're doing these at scale, you want to draft them, you want to do that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. You have the power to really customize these. And
Wow.
yeah, so that's kind of the grand finale of this little demo.
I was just talking with a customer recently that they were trying to figure out where to apply AI in their company, and this was the exact same thing. It was almost the idea of, we're getting feedback from somewhere, we're getting a lot of text into our systems, and we need to lift and shift, like from the data team, we need to lift and shift the ability to give back to sales and marketing a follow-up email. Just even responding via email and say, hey, here's a data system where we can just produce all that we can, one, figure out where we have friction in our process, the negative reviews, right? So find some sentiment from comments, identify that those are potentially customers who we want to respond back to. And maybe there's even something later on where we can do, some additional basket analysis on this and say, okay, which customers were most likely to churn? There's some kind of like churn analysis that probably go along with this. And I'm feeling like this is a lot of like prep work that I'm doing, or even alongside my churn analysis, and then going back to the marketing team and say, hey, look, we know this is not perfect. At least start here.
Right.
Here's a hit list of the most likely customers who would churn in our subscription service or whatever. Hey, by the way, here's some pre-built emails that you may want to start with, or something along those lines. That would be really interesting. And if you can do this at scale like this, I mean, I would imagine like we have promotional message 1 here. We may kick out like 2 or 3 versions of that, and change the prompt, make another column, change the prompt, make another column, and do like 3 messages. And that way, oh gosh, I'm thinking to myself, this would be really cool. You could like circle this back to a Power BI report, add a feature inside that would allow you to like, I'm thinking like translytical, right? Find an item, click on the element you want, click a translytical button, and boom, maybe we're popping out emails to start at least beginning the story of creating those emails for people. That could be really huge. So this is really interesting. It's got my brain turning now. I didn't think you could do all this stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm taking down some notes too, because those are good ideas for more demos, end-to-end things. Maybe next time I come back on, we'll build something like that. But yeah, the idea is like we want to give you flexibility, right? So you can do this whether it's for something customer facing, but also it could be an action item for a product team, right? It could be a memo, it could be something in your own tracking system. I don't want to tell you to use AI for things that maybe you want to personalize a little bit more, but you have the power and you have the flexibility to do it, and that's really the key. And with this experience, again, we can always add that code back to the notebook, edit it further, put it in a pipeline, do whatever we want. And so we were able to use the notebook, the low code experience, Data Wrangler, to do some sentiment analysis on data, filter right to those customers who maybe had negative feedbacks, and then custom draft responses to them using a mix of AI and then more standard kind of data science and data engineering tools.
This is, oh my gosh, you're blowing my mind now. The things I can think of now. This is crazy. Okay, so when people say AI and we get these kind of like experiences like Q&A to Power BI reports, some text analytics here. This feels real to me. This feels like I see this and I go, I'm excited about this. Like there's a lot of AI things that come out that are kind of like, okay, it's bells and whistles kind of things. This feels real. I like this. This is really, really slick. Awesome. Anything else, Erin, that you're going to be demoing for us today?
I want to show you one little thing, and then I have a poll or two if we have some time. I mentioned 100%. That I want to give Power Query some love as well. So we're also talking to that team, and let me maybe share this slide. I'm not going to play the audio with this. It's a slightly less polished demo, but I'm going to kind of pan over hopefully to the portion of it that shows you what this would look like in a data flow, because it's something we've been working on.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
You might remember this demo of
weird. I'm getting sound. Hold on, let me.
No worries.
I'm hearing myself in my head like some horrible nightmare. It stopped now. Okay, so
There
this
we go.
is, you see this, it's going. So this is the demo
Mhm.
that I showed. Hopefully my cursor will, yeah, calm down. So you've kind of seen this before, right? This is
Yeah.
the, oh, is it playing? Yeah, so this is what we were just doing, right? We were doing this kind of flow in a notebook. You're using the
Mhm.
libraries, you're, adding, code to add columns and so forth. But the idea is, right, you might want to do this outside of a notebook, outside of Data Wrangler. You might want to do it in another artifact. So we have
Yep.
these capabilities that are coming in, hopefully, in the next couple of quarters, maybe later this calendar year, where you'll be able to access AI functions and other Fabric experiences. So one of them that we're starting with, and I'll speed ahead in this video, is data warehousing, right? So you're going to get,
Ooh.
oh yeah, so you're going to be able to do the whole, notebook flow from T-SQL, right? If you're analyzing customer feedback in a data warehouse,
Nice.
you're going to be able to do this. There's actually a private preview sign up that we can pan to once this is
Mhm.
done with a
Sure.
QR code if people are curious. And then
Yep.
the other thing, I don't want to go too fast, but is the data flow experience. Let me start where that starts. Okay, so let's say we're doing this in a data flow, right? And this is something
Mhm.
I built myself. So it's a recording of a live demo that is a little hacky. But what I did is I wrote custom M code basically
Mhm.
to create these queries that are calling REST endpoints for the AI functions. So you're not going to have to worry about that if and when we build this out as an actual Fabric experience. It's just going to work out of
Sure.
the box for you. But the
Yeah.
idea is that you're going to be able to call these here. So I'm just showing how from another experience, like you can just hit these functions and translate language, data point by data point into another
Oh, wow.
language. So
Okay.
that's single point. But the real data flows use cases, like let's say we actually have data. So
Mhm.
let's in this case bring in, I think I took the same call transcripts that I used in that first notebook demo. So this is customer service call
Mhm.
transcript feedback, right? We can load that in whether it's coming from, OneLake or whether it's mirrored data, local CSV, whatever. We have
Yep.
this CSV and we're going to pull that into our data flow. And we might want to use the same AI functions here, but do it in the UX and have the code be M. So we see that
Yes.
we have this column with what seem to be, I think they're Swedish values. This was
Mhm.
FabCon Europe themed last year
Yeah.
using the same data.
Sure.
And we are going to apply, the AI functions by, in this case, invoking a custom thing. Soon enough, it'll be built in. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, you can do the translation in this case and hit those transcripts and make them English if you can't read Swedish. Uh,
Yep.
my boss is Swedish, so if she were here, she'd help. But until she comes back, we got to use AI functions, and we see that
Yeah.
it returns beautifully, right? So you get these English transcripts, and then you can interleave these with more standard data flow operations. So the same way in Data Wrangler, we were doing AI and then we were doing filtering. In a
Yep.
data flow, sometimes it's going to be an AI operation, but sometimes you're just renaming a column header. Then you can go and bring in AI again to do something like sentiment analysis, right? And the idea here is now we're getting those sentiment labels for the English transcripts. We have them here. We want to let you do it in a data flow. And so you kind of end up in the same place with that AI
Mhm.
enriched data,
Yep.
but you've done it a different way. We've kind of tailored it to you as a developer. So I think with the demos, I'll probably stop there, but this is
Yeah.
where we want to go, right? We want to put this into your hands the way you want with the flexibility that, you expect from your kind of home base and Fabric, whether that's Data Factory or, data engineering notebooks, you name it.
I'm excited. This is a killer feature, and the fact that you're bringing this to all these experiences, data warehouse, data flows, and then now it coming out initially with notebooks. I love where you're going with this one. I think this is rock solid. The feature design is on point here, and I really like this. Awesome. Well, anything else before we just kind of wrap here? I think you had maybe a couple QR codes you want to kind of present as well. You
Yeah.
want to bring those up?
Yeah, there are two quick polls we could do, or one I'd basically just say which
Yeah.
of the AI functions, are you likeliest to use? Like what sticks out to you? Is it translation? Is it this? Is it that? So let's see if I can maybe get that up and you can go straight to that. Let me share my screen again and pull that over. It might be in. I'm getting a
While you do
little.
that, I'll bring it back here to the normal screen here just to give you
Okay,
a
so
break. There you go. You got it.
okay,
Yep.
let me. But it's playing a video. I don't know where it's. It might just stay in the PowerPoint view. That's easier. Can you see that? Is that
Yeah, we got
okay?
that. Yep.
Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit. So this is the first poll question. Oops, let me make sure that's front and center and you can get the whole code. So I can also present these responses, but just if you're interested, right, you're welcome to kind of share which of those
Yep.
functions are you going to be likeliest to use and like which programming language. So Depending on the audience, sometimes that's, I don't want a programming language, I want it low code. Some people say, it's PySpark for me or nothing, or it might be Pandas. I just have a few of those questions to get a sense. So we could leave this up for a minute or two.
Yep.
And that's the first part. And then the second part to think about, and there will be another QR code for this in a minute, is what Fabric experience or artifact would you expect to see these in? So is it a data flow? Is that where you're working? Or is it, the new user data functions or data warehousing?
Sure.
Just want to get a sense of, this audience. Everyone has their own tastes. And then I think with that, we can sort of wrap up. So I'll leave this up for a minute and then we can look at the other one, Mike. And
I've got the code in the chat window as well. So the aka.ms PBI-Q1, it's also in the chat window. So if you want to hit the link directly, go into your streaming platform, either Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook. All of those will have the link there directly for you. So you can go ahead into those platforms, click the link, and go ahead and fill out the survey. And then we'll show you the second code.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure that works because I just put that in. Yeah, that looks like it's right.
Okay, phew.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm always redirecting them. Like sometimes you point to the wrong thing. Like who knows where that link is going to take you? You just got to be careful. But it is. No, it's good. It's safe for work. It's totally the right survey question. So that's the first one.
Awesome.
And I'll just go to the second one, which is here. And so this is asking about like where in the Fabric product would you want these kinds of integrations with AI functions? So I showed you Data Wrangler. I showed you data flows. But maybe I'm not thinking of the right place. Maybe you really want to be hitting these from Data Activator in real time. Just curious to understand where it would be useful to use so we can kind of plan our roadmap accordingly.
Oh, that's interesting. And a lot of this too, I mean, as we think about what you're doing here, I mean, you're doing this in like it's a one time, like you can send one query to the system behind the scenes. But also the idea here is you're doing things in bulk. You're being a bit more efficient. I don't have to send one row at a time, right? The whole idea here is the Microsoft team is developing this in a way that is send chunks of data at a time to get labeled or sentiment analysis. This is, again, talking about from an efficiency standpoint, that's what we should be doing. We should be thinking about how can we send 1,000 rows at a time instead of just one row at a time to keep calling the API. Is that also kind of what's happening here as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, from an implementation perspective, each of those rows is a single kind of OpenAI call in terms of how we do it. But there's batching that goes on. There's parallelization of those different calls. So
perfect.
We're trying to make it performant, scalable, and cost effective. Ultimately, model costs will go down. We'll, adapt to better and cheaper models over time. But I'm also always curious to hear, like, how do you want to use these, right? I've heard people say, I have a few hundred, customer reviews coming in every day. I'd want to run this on a schedule. There are other people who say, well, every quarter I'm going to be running, I don't know, thousands or hundreds
a million
of
or something. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Makes total sense. Awesome.
Curious to learn. So, thank you for your time, Mike, and also the audience. I know I can't see all of you the way we would at FabCon or something, but I'm told that there are people here. So it's really cool to be able to present to you and get your feedback. And please feel free to reach out if you have more to share.
Well, thank you very much. I feel like my shirt is very indicative of where we're at right now. I have a crawl, walk, run shirt on for Power BI. I feel like right now I just witnessed us starting to run with AI. This is awesome. I'm very excited about this one. Great feature. Thank you so much for the demo. We really appreciate you. You, the audience, we do this for you. We try and give you the best features right from the product team. Please make sure you give us a like and a subscribe down below. Let us know about the feedback. What other things would you like to hear about? And I think this episode of this session also mandates a second episode. We should definitely come back and revisit this. So let's talk in a couple of months. Let's see where we're at. And when you get some more of those features refined, let's revisit this again and take another peek at what AI is doing inside Microsoft Fabric.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.